Good morning. Good to see everyone here this morning, especially if you're visiting with us. We appreciate you coming to be with us today. If you're visiting on the internet, we appreciate you being here as well. 2 weeks ago, we began lessons on evolution or creation. How did we get here? In the first lesson, we looked at the differences in the teachings of evolution and creation. Then we studied the fossil record. And whenever it came to the question and the answer to the question, did evolution really occur, the fossil record shouted a resounding no. Evolution could not have occurred. Last week, we looked at the scientific laws. First and second laws of thermodynamics, the law of cause and effect, and the law of biogenesis. And in each one of those instances, creation is the one that the scientific laws harmonize with and not evolution. And Wednesday night, and I didn't put up a picture for this, Wednesday night we looked at dinosaurs. Did men and dinosaurs walk together? And the answer that we came up with was yes, they did and do. This morning, we want to take another look at evolution and creation. Going to be one more lesson next week on how old is the earth. This morning we want to look at, does design demand a designer, or did everything just get here by accident? You know, whenever you look at Mount Rushmore, was there a designer for Mount Rushmore, or did it take billions of years for that to take place? Well, there was a designer. It was sculpted by Danish-American Gutzon Borglum and his son Lincoln Borglum from 1927, and then the construction ended in 1941, or it may have taken billions of years, whichever you want to look at there. You know, whenever you look at jewelry, just look at your watch. Again, as I mentioned about my laptop, I did not buy my watch. I went out and I was out digging one day for something, and there it was. It had just happened. Well, if you believe that, I have some oceanfront property in North Dakota I would like to sell you as well. But whenever you look at that, does not jewelry or even the simple things like a pencil, does it not require a designer? In his book, this is Wayne Jackson's book, The Human Body, Accident or Design, and my scanner didn't get all the book up there for some reason. On page 1, he quotes a skeptic. He's a professor of philosophy and logic, and this is what Paul Ritchie says. This is in his work, Fundamentals of Critical Thinking, page 190. Everything designed has a designer. It is an analytically true statement. So if anything is designed, then there must be a designer. This pulpit is designed, it had a designer. Just like this microphone, just like this little piece of stuff I could pull off of the microphone. They all had a designer. Again, going back to Jackson's book, page 1, he said, since design demands a designer, it necessarily follows that if design is discovered in the fabric of the earth's environment, one would have to conclude, if intellectually honest, that there must be a grand designer ultimately responsible for this circumstance. All right, well, we want to ask the question then, what is design? And I'm going to use the Oxford American College Dictionary of 2002 again. I'm going to give you the second definition because the first one just says design is a plan or a drawing. The second definition says purpose, planning, or intention that exists or is thought to exist behind an action, fact, or material object. You know, for instance, that is a carving or a statue, I guess you might say, of a horse from the 8th century BC that was found in Israel. You might recognize that as being a real horse. There are those that will tell us that the clay horse had to have a designer, but the real horse got here by accident. Which one took more design? This is Alexander the Great fighting the Persians on a mosaic that was found in the city of Pompeii. Was there a designer of that mural, of that mosaic? Was there purpose, planning, and intention in that mosaic? The answer is yes. But then evolutionists will tell us that, it didn't take millions of years for that mosaic to come into being. There was a designer, there was a planner, there was intention there, but everyone that's depicted in that scene got here by accident. We want to first look at our finely tuned universe. I found some of these pictures. Some were taken by the Hubble, some are from NASA, such things as that. That's another one, shows a galaxy. This is actually the Helix Nebula. It's 700 light years from Earth, and just multiply 5.88 trillion times 700 and you'll get how many miles that is from Earth. Because light travels about 5.88 trillion miles in a year. There are an estimated 100 billion galaxies in our universe. 25 sextillion stars. That's a 25 with 21 zeros behind it. And even there are many more stars than we can count. The psalmist declared in Psalm 147:4, He telleth the number of the stars, He calleth them all by their names. The word tell there means to count. God counts the stars and has a name for that many stars. I don't know that many names, but God does. The Milky Way galaxy in which we live contains approximately 100 billion stars. It's so large that traveling at the speed of light, it would take you 100,000 years to cross its diameter. And again, the speed of light is 100, and I've got this wrong. This is not mph. This is feet per second, not miles per hour. 186,000 feet per second, or 5.88 or 5.9 trillion miles a year. The Earth is located at the outside edge of our galaxy. The galaxy we live in is the Milky Way. We are about 28,000 light years from the center of the galaxy. This kind of gives us an idea. We are located right here on that part of the Milky Way galaxy. I want to look at the sun. Is there design in the sun? The sun converts 8 million tons of matter into energy every second, has no interior temperature and has an interior temperature of more than 20 million degrees Celsius or 36,032 degrees Fahrenheit. A little bit warmer than your microwave. The Earth is located exactly the correct distance from the sun, 93 million miles. To receive the proper amount of heat and radiation to sustain life, if we were 10% closer, we'd burn up. If we were 10% further away, we'd freeze. This kind of gives you an idea of the size of the sun compared to our planets. There's the planet Earth, that little dot right there. Of course, this picture was done back whenever Pluto was still called a planet. But that gives you an idea of how large the sun is. Now, as was read a while ago, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth His handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Their line is gone out through the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them He has set a tabernacle for the sun, which is as the bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race. His going forth is from the end of heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. Psalm 19, 1-6. So there's our sun. You get out and you look at it, our sun is nothing but a little speck in this universe. We see this one. There's our sun. These are other stars that are out there. Sirius, first of all. Sirius is the brightest star in the sky. It's in the constellation Canis Major. Pollux, the brightest star in the constellation Gemini. It's 34 light years from Earth. Arcturus, the brightest star in the constellation Bootes, 36.7 light years from Earth. But those are just midgets. Our sun is one little pixel right there. There's Sirius, Pallas, and Arcturus. First we have Rigel, the seventh brightest star in the sky and the brightest star in the constellation Orion. 772.9 light years from Earth. You take the 5.88 trillion miles that light travels in a year, you multiply that times 772.9, you come up with 4,544,652,000,000,000 miles from Earth. And they want us to believe it all came from something about the size of a little dot at the end of a sentence. Aldebaran, brightest star in the constellation Taurus, 65 light years from Earth. Betelgeuse, always loved that name, is the 10th brightest star in the sky and is in the constellation Orion, 640 light years from Earth. Again, you multiply everything out, that is 3,528,000,000,000,000 miles from Earth. Antares, that's Antares I was giving you the numbers for, 600 light years from Earth. It's a red supergiant, 16th brightest star in the sky in the constellation Scorpius, 600 light years from Earth. Again, a little over 3.5 quadrillion miles from Earth. How bright a star looks when it's viewed from Earth depends on two factors: the brightness of the star and the distance from Earth. A nearby star that is actually dim can appear brighter than a distant star that is extremely brilliant. That just makes sense. Astronomers measure the size of stars in terms of the sun's radius. Rigel, well, we can't see it now, is 78 solar radii. Antares, the big one, 776 solar radii. It's a whole lot bigger than our sun. Now still, it amazes me. Jupiter is not even visible at that scale. Our sun is 1 pixel. Think about God's power. According to Wikipedia, the size of our universe is unknown. It may be infinite. The region visible from the Earth, the observable universe, is a sphere with a radius of about 46 billion light years. Radius is the distance from the center to the edge. Diameter is from one edge to the other. So you're looking at the observable universe of 92 billion light years. You multiply that out, you get 5.4 with 23 zeros behind it. I'm not even going to try to tell you what that is. I can't. But that is the estimated size of our universe. This gives the different shapes of the galaxies. This is an irregular galaxy. Sextans A does not have a simple shape like a spiral or elliptical galaxy. The bright yellowish stars in the foreground are part of the Milky Way, Earth's home galaxy. And that's from the World Book 2001. This is another instance. This shows several galaxies. The most distant galaxies yet observed appear as faint patches of light in this photograph taken by the Hubble Space Telescope. The brighter swirls are galaxies somewhat closer to the Earth, and the bright orange object that you see there is a star in our own galaxy. Again, this gives us an idea of our Milky Way galaxy. We're located right there. Another look at our Milky Way galaxy. Our sun's location is right there. Is there design in the universe? Is there design? This is a high-resolution image from the Hubble Ultra Deep Field. Shows a diverse range of galaxies, each consisting of billions of stars. The equivalent area of the sky that is in the picture that occupies is shown in that little square right there. That's the moon. So that little bit right there is all that. When I consider thy heavens, the work of thy fingers, the moon, the stars, which thou hast ordained, what is man? that thou art mindful of him, and the Son of Man that thou visitest him. For thou hast made him a little lower than the angels, and hast crowned him with glory and honor. Look at God's vast creation. Our sun is not even just one pixel on the picture a while ago, and then what are we? The psalmist wondered that as well, didn't he? What is man? The earth is rotating on its axis at 1,000 miles per hour at the equator, moving around the sun at 70,000 miles per hour, or about 19 miles a second. If the earth rotated much faster, fierce cyclones would stir over the earth. If the earth turned significantly slower, the days and nights would be impossibly hot or cold. This gives an example there from the world book of our little part of the world here, universe. The earth being right there rotating around the sun. Well, as the earth moves in its orbit around the sun, on average it departs from a straight line by only 1/9 of an inch every 18 miles. If it departed by 1/8 of an inch, we'd come too close to the sun, be incinerated. If it departed by 1/10 of an inch, we'd be so far from the sun we'd freeze. Is there design in the universe? The earth is also just the right distance from the moon, 240,000 miles. The moon helps control the ocean tides. The tides are an important part of ocean currents, and without those currents, the oceans would stagnate. Animals and plants living in the oceans and seas would soon perish. Think about an aquarium. If you don't have some kind of motion going in there, all those fish die, don't they? Did all of that happen by accident? Or was it designed? Now let's look at, all that was just created by accident according to Bill Nye the Science Guy. We'll look at design in the animal kingdom. This is a little fella called the Bombardier beetle. You'll notice, and we'll look at this again in a minute, he has a few different chemicals in his body. Hydroquinone, hydrogen peroxide, and then he mixes those things together into in this little combustion type chamber, and then he gives all that adds some more things to it in the explosion chamber, and don't get in his way. The Bombardier beetle, this is what it looks like. Whenever I look at that picture, all this stuff he's shooting out at his enemy must not hurt him because it's going right there across his legs. Is there design there, even in that? Well, when he's threatened, he points his abdomen at his enemy, fires a spray of boiling hot chemicals. Inside his body has tiny glands that secrete hydrogen peroxide and hydroquinones into a storage tank. If an enemy attacks, it empties these two chemicals into a special explosion chamber. Again, another look there, kind of give you an idea of what design is. Well, when it does that, it adds special enzymes to the mixture to form a solution that reaches the boiling point of water, 212 degrees Fahrenheit. It aims its two small gun-like projections on the rear of its body and fires the boiling mixture into the face of the attacker. Wonder how many millions of Bombardier beetles died before they got that right. Is there not design there? Just a simple thing as a woodpecker. The woodpecker's skull is constructed with a suspension system that allows it to absorb the force of the lightning-fast repetitive strokes on tree trunks up to 40 times in less than 3 seconds. Each peck results in stress equivalent to 1,000 times the force of gravity. In most birds, the bones of the beak are joined to the bones of the cranium, part of the skull that surrounds the brain. But in the woodpecker, the cranium and beak are separated by a sponge-like tissue that takes the shock each time he strikes his beak against the wood. Now, how did he figure that one out? Decide to do that himself, or was he designed? All right. Also, the woodpecker. It's a little dark, but it has an X-shaped foot that make it easy to move around on the tree trunk, and stiff and yet they're elastic tail feathers to press against the tree to support its weight while it drills into trees. Now, how did that woodpecker figure out that he needed to have his feet shaped differently and decide to do that? Or is there design? It also has a long, sticky tongue that is up to about 5 times longer than its beak. It neutralizes poison from ant bites so it can distract ants and other insects in the trees. You know, I don't like the poison that comes from a wasp. And I don't like the itch that comes from a chigger, so sooner or later I'm going to quit itching from chiggers and hurting from wasp bites. Or is there design in the woodpecker? What about design in the human body? That demands a designer as well. Look first of all at the human cell, made up of a membrane, nucleus, mitochondria, DNA, such all that's in there. A human body is composed of over 200 different kinds of cells that total approximately 100 trillion cells in the average adult. The largest cell in the human body is 1/100th of an inch in diameter. Some cells are so small that 20,000 of them would fit in a capital O from a standard computer font. Do human cells show design? How about the human skin? Our skin is our largest organ. The skin of a 150-pound man covers about 20 square feet, weighs about 9 pounds. A piece of skin the size of a quarter contains a yard of blood vessels, 4 yards of nerves, 25 nerve endings, 100 sweat glands, and more than 3 million cells. And they all just one day decided to get together and go jump together, right? The human skin keeps harmful bacteria from entering the body. It is waterproof both inside and outside. It has sweat glands that eliminate waste and cool. It has oil glands that lubricate. Is there design in the human skin? What about the human eye? I'm not even going to bring up all those things. You can read those for yourself that are in the human eye. The brain is connected to the eye by more than 600,000 nerves that send it messages at over 300 miles an hour. The eye receives 1.5 million messages at the same time, sorts through them, and sends them to the brain. The body would have to walk 50 miles to exercise the leg muscles as much as the muscles of the eye work every day. Is there design in the eye? George Gaylord Simpson is an evolutionist, and he wrote a book in 1949 called The Meaning of Evolution. It was later revised in 1967. This is a revised version that we're going to look at. And speaking of man, on page 294, he said this: "The result is the most highly endowed organization of matter that has yet appeared on the earth." So he says all we are is a highly endowed organization of matter. All those things that we just looked at. Psalm 139, 14-16, the psalmist said, "I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. My substance was not hid from thee when I was made in secret, curiously wrought in the lowest parts of the earth." That verse is talking about conception. Verse 16, "Thine eyes did see my substance, yet being unperfect, and in thy book all my members were written, which in continuance were fashioned, when as yet there was none of them." That's talking about the child in that 9 months before he was born. That's what that verse is talking about. And, we looked at a few systems. There are many systems in the human body. One of them is the circulatory system. The heart, and all this comes from faxmonster.com. The heart, arteries, and veins transport blood throughout the body. We have the digestive system. The digestive system is made up of organs that break down food into protein, vitamins, minerals, carbohydrates, and fats, which the body needs for energy, growth, and repair. The endocrine system is made up of a group of glands that produce the body's long-distance messengers, or hormones. The immune system. The immune system is our body's defense system against infections and diseases. Organs, tissues, cells, and cell products work together to respond to dangerous organisms like viruses or bacteria and substances that may enter the body from the environment. The lymphatic system. Lymphatic system is a defense system for the body. It filters out organs that cause disease, produces white blood cells, generates disease-fighting antibodies. Muscular system. made up of the tissues that work with the skeletal system to control the movement of the body. Nervous system. System made up of the brain, the spinal cord, and nerves. One of the most important systems in your body, the nervous system is your body's control system. Reproductive system. The reproductive system allows humans to produce children. Respiratory system. Brings air into the body and removes carbon dioxide, includes the nose, trachea, and lungs. Skeletal system. Made up of bones, ligaments, and tendons, shapes the body, protects the organs. The skeletal system works with the muscular system to help the body move. And there's many more. I want to introduce you to, if you don't know this guy is Richard Dawkins. According to Wikipedia, this is what Richard Dawkins is. Dawkins shares the view generally held by scientists that natural selection is sufficient to explain the apparent functionality and non-random complexity of the biological world, and can be said to play the role of a watchmaker in nature, albeit as an automatic, non-intelligent, blind watchmaker. And yet, he stated this in his book, The Blind Watchmaker, on page IX. The brain with which you are understanding my words is an array of some 10 million kiloneurons. Many of these billions of nerve cells have each more than 1,000 electric wires connecting them to other neurons. Moreover, at the molecular genetic level, every single one of more than 1 trillion cells in the body contains about 1,000 times as much precisely coded digital information as my entire computer. The complexity of living organisms is matched by the elegant efficiency of their apparent design. If anyone doesn't agree that this amount of complex design cries out for an explanation, I give up. And yet he does not believe in design of a creator. Does design in the universe fit evolution or creation? This answer is simple. Fits creation. Does design in the universe demand a grand designer, or do things just happen by chance and accident and take billions of years to do? You can confidently say that given the evidence we've studied, not only today but the last 2 lessons or 3 lessons, the only logical conclusion is that the universe and everything in it were created by God. As the psalmist declared in Psalm 100, verse 3, Know ye that the Lord, He is God, it is He that hath made us, and not we ourselves. We are His people, and the sheep of His pasture. And again, there could have been a lot more added to this lesson, but some of you may be getting hungry by now. But you know, that just happens by accident, so don't worry about it. Now, this morning we understand there is a God. God does exist. And if there is a God, and there is, we need to be faithful to Him. And He has given us in His Word what we need to do to be obedient to Him. To become a follower of His or a child of His, hear His Word. Believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, repent of your sins, confess Christ's deity, and be immersed in water for the remission of your sins. That's what He commands us to do. But He also commands us that if we are followers of His or children of His, we are to be obedient unto death, faithful unto death, Revelation 2:10. This morning, if you need to make your life right with the Creator of the universe, with the one that created something so large as Arcturus, just by speaking, come let your needs be known as we stand and sing.